Hello and welcome to my presentation for the Bangor University MSc Counseling Research Conference on May 14, 2024. My name is Autumn Boland and my presentation will be on the impact of equestrian activities on mental health and well-being. My background as a researcher includes a bachelor's in psychology and a master's in forensic psychology from Grand Canyon University. This presentation is part of my current master's in counseling program here at Bangor University. As for my interest in horses, I began working with horses at age 5 and I've continued to work with them ever since. I currently own a horse, an American Mustang from the Sahuarita herd in Arizona. I also currently volunteer with an equine-assisted therapy program here in Wales, while I previously worked as a herd health volunteer for Wild Horse Ranch Rescue in Arizona. So, what do horses have to do with mental health and well-being? The use of equines, including horses, donkeys, and zebras, in psychotherapy is a slowly developing field. Initially, horses were utilized as part of therapeutic riding programs in the 1960s. Over the last 60 years, therapeutic riding has changed to encompass any interaction with equines, and when used for mental health, it is often called equine-assisted psychotherapy, or EAP. At the time of this presentation, there is no formalized procedure for EAP. Each organization creates their own procedures and standards. The closest we have to an organized model is the Equine-Assisted Growth and Learning Association model, or EGALA. While there is research supporting this model, it focuses primarily on what conditions and populations can benefit from EAP, rather than what specific activities should be included. There is a growing trend with EGALA followers to use only observation of the animal in a herd setting over direct interaction. This is at odds with most other animal therapies in which contact with the animal is deemed necessary. Despite the movement away from therapeutic riding, most equestrians will agree with this Winston Churchill quote that no hour of life is lost that is spent in the saddle. As it stands now, EAP does not have a single definition. Researchers can mostly agree that it consists of a range of treatments and is often holistic in nature, as well as that it can promote both physical and mental health. Most researchers will also agree that it requires a 3- or 4-way relationship between the equine, the client, and trained professionals. The EGALA model specifically requires an equine specialist and a mental health specialist. There is some research suggesting that self-directed therapy with just the equine and client is possible, but this has not been extensively studied. Another gap in the research is that most EAP studies have looked at the impact of EAP without consideration to the specific activities used in the intervention. Most studies have used observation in herd settings, grooming, and some groundwork, while the EGALA model heavily emphasizes groundwork and does not allow for any mounted interactions. For this study, I utilized an online questionnaire and semi-structured interviews to gather qualitative data. Analysis of the data included basic statistical analysis of demographics from both the questionnaire and interviews, as well as thematic analysis of free text questionnaire responses and the interviews. The goal of this project was to establish a direction for future research on which equine activities are the most impactful on the mental health and well-being of participants. Participants for the online questionnaire were recruited through social media, namely Facebook, Instagram, and Reddit. Of the 191 responses, only 161 participants responded fully to the questionnaire. These 161 participants were from around the world, though the majority, 112 participants, were from the United States. Participants also came from the United Kingdom, Ireland, and 9 other countries including Australia, Canada, the Netherlands, France, New Zealand, Jamaica, Poland, Sweden, and the Czech Republic. The 8 interview participants were randomly selected from the participants who had agreed to be contacted during the online questionnaire. Participants were from the United States, United Kingdom, Ireland, and Poland, with 6 participants self-reporting as female and 2 participants self-reporting as male. Most participants for the interviews were in their 20s, with only 1 participant out of that range. As to ethical considerations, no participants were disqualified based on gender, nationality, country of residence, or prior knowledge of EAP. Sexuality was not recorded during the questionnaire or the interviews. The only disqualifying factors included that the participant must be over the age of 18, and they must have experience with equines. The questionnaire recorded basic demographic information, including age, nationality, and current country of residence. Participants were then asked to select their previous and current relationship with equines, specifically if they had ever bred, owned, leased, been employed around, trained, ridden, or taken lessons with equines. It also recorded how many hours per week on average participants spent doing various equine activities, such as riding, grooming, feeding, and mucking stalls. The participants were then asked if they would continue working with horses. Interestingly, every single participant responded to that question with yes. The participants were then asked to use a Likert scale to identify how strongly they felt time with equines impacted their mood and well-being. Participants were asked to respond in a free text box with which activities they believed would be used in EAP before having the option to leave a final comment on how they believed equine interactions affected mental health and well-being. From the free text response to the question, what activities would be involved in EAP, 30 participants elected to respond. Thematic analysis of these responses yielded 4 main themes: interaction with equines, be it direct or emotional, mental health, well-being, and positive emotions, integration with traditional psychotherapy, and specific application or usage. For the primary theme of interaction with equines, be it direct or emotional, 5 subthemes were identified. These included participants explicitly mentioning riding or grooming, spending time around or with equines, emphasis specifically on the relationship with the equine, and connection with the equine being a priority. This was the dominant theme, with 22 of the 30 participants having at least one example of a subtheme in the response. The second theme, mention of mental health, well-being, or positive emotion, had 2 subthemes. These were specific mention of mental health or well-being, or the specific use of the words release, relax, or calm. 12 of the 30 participant responses included one of these subthemes. The third theme for the questionnaire free text response was integration with traditional therapy. This did not have a subtheme, but was classified as the specific mention of therapy or counseling with horses. 11 of the 30 responses used some variation of therapy, but with horses. The final theme identified from the questionnaire was the specific application or usage of EAP. The 4 subthemes included building confidence, a specific mental health condition such as depression, anxiety, or post-traumatic stress disorder, an improved mood, and improvement of resilience or ability to cope. This was the least common theme in the questionnaire, with only 8 of the 30 responses mentioning this, but it related heavily to the themes identified in the interviews. 8 interviews were conducted, transcribed, and then analyzed using Braun and Clark's thematic analysis model. 5 main themes were identified with subthemes. The main themes included limitations, physicality, impact on mental health and mood, sense of achievement or purpose, and connection with the equine. It is important to note that all 8 interviews were transcribed and then approved by the participant to ensure that they were transcribed accurately. At this time, participants were also offered the chance to withdraw from the study if they would like to. The first theme was limitations to working with equines. Within the theme were 2 subthemes: limitations that can be modified by EAP practitioners and those that cannot be. Modifiable limitations include the cost of equines, the availability of equine services nearby, and the toxicity of the equine community. Money was the largest limitation noted, with 5 of the 8 participants noting it as their primary obstacle. Unmodifiable limitations include time, physical health, and the weather. Multiple participants mentioned that their physical health was a barrier to working more with equines. The main 2 were weight and age. These are things that as EAP practitioners we are unable to change. However, it is something important to note that it may prevent people from feeling as if they are able to access EAP resources, even if they are within the approved parameters. The second theme identified was the physicality of equine interactions. This was broken down into 4 subthemes, with exercise, physical activity, being outdoors, and the use of senses being noted. Physical activity was broken down into specific mentions of riding, mucking, and grooming. Riding was the most commonly mentioned physical activity, with 26 individual comments involving riding noted across all 8 interviews. Considering most EAP interventions do not incorporate riding at all, this was a surprising finding. General exercise was mentioned 20 times. Unexpectedly, there were 3 participants who explicitly mentioned the use of senses, specifically touch, smell, and hearing. The impact on mental health and mood theme specifically highlighted explicit word usage. This included words surrounding self-care, calming or grounding, well-being, the specific mention of a mental health condition, coping, therapeutic, or the mention of a positive emotion. When it comes to mental health conditions, the most commonly mentioned included anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. For positive emotions, any emotion that was considered positive, such as better mood, happier, lovely, less stressed, laughing, was coded for this. The fourth theme was a sense of achievement or purpose. This theme highlighted the specific usage of the word purpose, reward or rewarding, a mention of learning or development, feelings of independence or escape, competition, and responsibility. For improvement areas, lack of competence and avoidance of risk were highlighted. For responsibility, routine was included as a subtheme. 6 of the 8 participants emphasized lack of or development of confidence as an integral part to working with equines. There were 11 specific mentions of learning and development that highlighted the sense of achievement gained when learning to work with equines. Half of the participants mentioned the feeling of independence or escape that was afforded when riding horses. 6 participants also highlighted the level of responsibility needed when working with horses. The final theme was connection. Awareness of the animal or observation was the first subtheme. Emotional connection and physical connection were also highlighted, while early formative experiences were commonly mentioned by participants. 7 of the 8 participants explicitly and regularly referred to a physical connection with the equine, for a total of 44 individual comments. The emotional connection with the animal was echoed by 6 of the 8 participants, for a total of 35 mentions. Awareness of animal included observation and understanding of the unique personality for the equine. 1 participant was responsible for 12 of the 20 comments around awareness, while 6 participants remarked on it in total. The key takeaways for both sets of thematic analysis showcase where equestrians find value in their work with horses. Equestrians place considerable emphasis on the relationship between them and the equine. Considerable limitations, both modifiable and otherwise, may prevent participants from being able to access EAP services. These limitations can be considered by EAP service providers to assist in increasing availability and retention of participants. The definition of EAP is uncertain to even equestrians, meaning the average individual may not have a clear understanding of what EAP is. The participants believe that a physical connection to the animal will herald an emotional connection, emphasizing the need for direct equine interactions in EAP programs. A sense of achievement or purpose can be cultivated in EAP sessions to potentially increase confidence. This sense of achievement can be used therapeutically and can be measured in many ways. Finally, despite variability in preferred equine activities, many equestrian participants agree that working with equines is impactful and beneficial to one's mental health. So what does this tell us? EAP programs may see benefit from expanding beyond simple groundwork and observation. Inclusion of more physical interactions, including riding, with emphasis on building an emotional and physical connection, could be impactful. Focusing on minimization of risk while building confidence can be used therapeutically. Finally, reducing the limitations and barriers will increase availability of service to participants and allow for more clients to seek out EAP programs. This study did have a few limitations that are important to note. The primary limitation was the sample size. While the number of interviews was still substantially higher than other EAP studies, it would still be useful for future researchers to consider increasing the sample size to better be able to generalize the findings. Within that is the consideration of the population. For the questionnaire, the majority of the population was from the United States. The interviews, however, had a majority of members from the United Kingdom. While this may or may not have had an impact on the study, it would be a potential confound to note in future studies. The final limitation of the study is the fact that it was qualitative only in nature. Despite the collection of some quantitative data in the questionnaire, that data was not used at this time. Future studies should consider looking at quantitative data as well. In future research, consideration of larger sample sizes with a more diverse population is critical. Future studies should also consider the variability of experience within their population, with reference to riding discipline, age of first equine experience, and the amount of experience of each participant. Finally, introduction of quantitative data, specifically via pre- and post-equine activity with outcome measures, would further solidify the findings of this study. Thank you for your time today. If you have any questions about equine-assisted psychotherapy or the study, feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn, email, or Instagram.